Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is either Monday, November 9th, or Tuesday, November 10th, depending on whose class you're in. Here's our standard for the day. Explain how the settlement of people from various cultures affected the development of regions in North Carolina. And let's go. So, how did North Carolina's culture develop? Well, cultures change when people interact with those from another culture. Oftentimes, customs and traditions from each culture are combined to create a new culture for that place or group. So, what is a custom? A custom is an unusual or a usual way of doing things. And a tradition is a custom or an idea that has been handed down from the past. So, think about some customs and traditions that you practice at home, maybe at school, in your community. All right. We have seen this map before. We actually saw it on November 2nd or 3rd. And think back to it. Looking at the settlement of North Carolina. North Carolina was settled by people from many different backgrounds. There were people that were American Indian, African, English, Irish, Scottish, French, Welsh, German, and Swiss. That then, all the different people being here led to a combination of cultures and eventually the creation of the culture of North Carolina. You can see where they are by checking out the key and looking at that map. So, what are some of our cultures in North Carolina? Well, handcrafted goods. So, starting with pottery, American Indians throughout all the regions of North Carolina created items and tools that they needed through pottery. Some of the items they made included water bowls, cooking bowls, utensils, and more. Settlers of European descent also played a major role in the incorporation of pottery into our state culture. Many of these settlers lived in the Piedmont. Then we had basket making. In addition to pottery, American Indians in North Carolina wove baskets out of reeds, grasses, or wood. Baskets obviously were used to carry and store things. So that was then, this is now. As far as handcrafted goods, North Carolinians continue to create and value handcrafted objects today. Wood carving, basket making, needlework, rug and quilt making, and pottery are also a large part of the culture in the mountain region. North Carolinians throughout the state and people throughout the world recognize and appreciate the beauty and value of these fine goods. A little did you know that many potters live in Seagrove, North Carolina, which is in the Piedmont. The first settlers of this town came from a part of England known for its fine pottery in China. This likely made the city the prominent town that it is today. Then we've got storytelling. The American Indians, part of their culture was storytelling. Many of the American Indians that still live in the state of North Carolina have legend stories and so forth that are centuries or also hundreds. Century is 100 years old. Stories were told in order to preserve the history of these groups. Then thinking about early immigrants. Similarly, early immigrants to North Carolina kept their history safe by passing down stories as well. Storytelling was also used as a form of entertainment during time without TVs, computers, and iPads. I think you guys would likely not be terribly happy if you didn't have all those things. People had to pass the time somehow, though, right? And then enslaved Africans. In an effort to remember their homelands that they had been involuntarily taken away from, enslaved Africans told stories and folk tales such as Brer Rabbit and the Anansi tales. These stories and the tradition itself was passed down through many generations. Thinking about storytelling today, due to its prevalence among the many different cultures of early North Carolinians, storytelling is still an important part of our state's culture. The North Carolina Storytelling Guide was created to help maintain and spread the tradition of storytelling. Storytelling festivals are held throughout the state. You can visit the coast of North Carolina to see a live action drama of the discovery of life on Roanoke Island, which is like retelling a story. And then reenactments of battles to North Carolina's history take place throughout the state. Music then. North Carolina is really well known for Appalachian folk or bluegrass music. This style of music, which was developed basically in the western part of the state, is rooted in cultures of many different settlers in the area. The banjo was an instrument from West Africa brought to the region by enslaved Africans. Other key instruments like guitars, fiddles, dulcimers, and the style in which they were brought to the area by English, Irish, and Scottish settlers. Think about music now. It's still a very important part of our state's culture. In addition to the continued prominence of bluegrass music, we also celebrate many other genres of music in North Carolina. The North Carolina Symphony tours throughout the state, probably not right now, but usually during the year. And it was the first state-supported orchestra in the country, which is a pretty cool fact. Other traditions, clogging. It's a popular tradition in the western part of the state. Dancers, also known as cloggers, perform folk dances to the tune of Appalachian folk music. It's a lot like tapping, but still some differences. It can be tied to the cultures of Irish, Scottish, and English, as well as American Indians and enslaved African Americans. Clogging is the official state dance of North Carolina. Grandfather Mountain Highland Games and gathering of Scottish clans. Citizens of North Carolina preserve the culture of their Scottish ancestors by hosting 3 days of traditional Scottish games in the mountain region of the state. Some of these games are archery, wrestling, tug of war, and the caber toss. And then we have some other sports. Hundreds of years ago, Petey American Indian tribes played a game similar to present-day lacrosse. The love of the sport is still strong in North Carolina culture. Whether you have a liking for it or not, it is all rooted in that American Indian group of people. And your job is going to be to complete the Impact of Cultures in North Carolina note catcher. Your teacher might ask you to fill out certain sections or fill out the whole thing. It is completely up to her, but you need to make sure that you get this done and you turn it in on the day it is due. I'll show you what it looks like. Again, she might ask you to complete all of it or to complete some of it. More than likely, my students are going to be able to pick 2 of these sections and complete the 2 that you choose. Miss Stouthamer's students, I don't know what she's going to have you do. She might have you do it all or just some of it, but whatever she chooses, follow those directions. Thanks, guys. Get to work.